Good morning, everybody. My name's Kerry Duval. I am the Warrior Queen. Backstage, I've got an absolutely amazing guest. He's becoming quite a regular on Mental Health Warriors. So I'll see you in a minute. Welcome to Coffee Morning.
Good morning, good evening, and hello.
I know. This is the first time you and me are meeting properly.
Yes. This is.
I've seen you on plenty of other lives.
Yeah, I've been sharing myself a lot around, and now it's beautiful to see the Warrior Queen in the flesh. We've had a little bit of a conversation, and what an extraordinary life you have.
Yep. We have had an amazing conversation backstage. One thing I will ask though, I had the pleasure of meeting your son earlier on video call. Are you going to give him the $20 for his tooth?
That's actually not my son.
All right, okay.
So that's my partner's son. So I guess in a way, it's kind of like an adopted son.
Your stepson.
Yeah. So I actually didn't mention to Belinda that he was going to get $20 for his tooth. But maybe I'll send her a message while we're on here and say, oh, by the way,
he needs $20.
Yeah.
He's expecting $20 for his tooth off the Tooth Fairy. Can't disappoint him.
Oh, I know. You gotta always man up to these things, right?
Yep. This is why you never ask children how much your tooth is worth, because otherwise it gets very expensive.
Absolutely.
Oh. Yeah. And now we got that bit over.
He's very proud of it too. He's got a big gap there in the bottom there, and he's there. He's like, my first tooth. Boom. I'm growing up.
Yep. Adam says, Kane, will you be dressing up as a Tooth Fairy?
Not tonight. I'm sure if someone asked me, I would.
I think we're going to have to bring you back dressed up as the Tooth Fairy, Kane.
Is there a World International Tooth Fairy Day, maybe?
I have no idea. Adam, have a look.
Let's find out.
Yeah, if anybody would like to see Kane dressed up as a Tooth Fairy, please do contact the Warriors or comment on this live and let us know. We'll make it happen.
Yes.
That's it, Kane. Now you've had it. Well, now that we've had the laugh underway, we can get into the serious things. It is it world, Adam? Is it World or National Eating Disorder Week, Awareness Week? It's not mental health. It is Eating Disorders Awareness Week. I don't know if it's national or international. I'm not sure on that one, but it is awareness. So we are going to be touching on eating disorders. Now, I do know that you've had some experience with eating disorders. Would you like to share that experience you've had?
Yeah, look, it's, got me thinking last night, because obviously you've just brought me in, 24 hours ago. And initially there was the experience that I had with my sister who had anorexia for a while. And again, that's viewing it. How old was I? I was, goodness me, I guess I was about 10 years old at that point. She's 4.5 years older than me. So she was, at least 14 and a half, maybe 15, cracking 15. And I just saw my parents getting upset. And I think, back then, back in the 80s, so that was late 80s, early 80s, mid 80s, somewhere in the 80s. And, I don't think anorexia was still at that point, a lot was understood from a psychological point of view. I think it was still very much the notion you've got to eat. You've got to eat. That's that's what you do. Her parents were weighing her, and she would do things like put heavy bags of money like under her clothes to look like she's heavier. Like when I say money, coins, like bags of coins, to weigh her down a bit. And it's a really hard thing to digest, especially as a 10-year-old. I didn't really understand what I was witnessing, but so I copped a lot of bullying as a kid, and that's because I was a fat kid, right? I was pretty big kid, and I copped a lot for many, many, many years, physical and mental. And, I'd get beaten up at school, or my sister would beat me up. She was probably one of the main instigators, especially mentally. And isn't it interesting that she would pick on my weight as a very young kid, and then she would go through a period of wanting to be skinny. It's quite interesting. I never really thought about it, but quite an interesting process in that respect. And look, for me, the bullying, and it wasn't that I wasn't eating a lot of bad food, but I wasn't eating the right foods for my body. So my body doesn't like many carbs. It doesn't eat much pasta, stuff like that, and it really slows my metabolism down. And I didn't start figuring that out until I was in my 30s. What actually worked in my body and how to maintain a regular weight without dieting, just eating the right foods that worked for my body, for my body type, because everyone's different. Everyone reacts differently to different foods. Some people can eat. I've got friends that eat pasta every day, and they're skinny, right? And you just sit there and you're like, it's amazing. Like, your metabolism's so different. And I think, one of the aspects to me, because I didn't think I had an eating disorder, but maybe I did, being a fat kid. Maybe I did, but I didn't view it like no one. I didn't recognize that I was having an eating disorder as such. And it's quite possible that I was. I'm not saying that I did, but it's quite possible that I was, because of the constant barrage of taunting and bullying and mental abuse and picking on, and that really destroyed my self-esteem. Really, destroyed my self-esteem. I was such a quiet kid, kept to myself, played by myself, found it really hard to make friends. Even my principal of my school, grade 8, I moved states, so I went to Queensland. I was in Victoria. My principal had written the letter to the new school saying, this is what Kane is kind of like, doesn't have many friends, kind of keeps to himself. And I saw the letter many years later. I didn't see it when I was a kid. But when I saw it, I was like, wow, is that how I was perceived?
Yeah.
And I think if I had read it when I was a kid, it probably would have had quite an effect on me. again, like another effect on me. And I think, you know, I didn't start getting my confidence until I was about 15. And it was because of, I was in a new state, new school, and the taunting continued, right? And I was 14 when I arrived at that school, and I was still getting picked on for my weight. I was still getting taunted. And it was coming more from girls at that age. Girls were really digging into me and you know, crushing my spirit, I guess, in that respect. Yeah. And I guess as many kids do, you tend not to talk about it, and you tend to just try and figure it out for yourself. You know, keep it in your own head and do things that don't really resonate in your own soul.
Yeah.
And that's where it can lead to self-harm, which is what we were talking about earlier with yourself. And yeah, it's a hard one, right? Because one thing, like, this is a really interesting aspect, because I was listening to some really interesting interviews on eating disorders, anorexia, bulimia, just a little earlier. Yeah. And this is in Australia with a group of psychologists and people that were involved, regular people that were just talking about their experience. And yeah, one of the key things that they kept bringing up was that it was all self-worth issues. It was all, I'm not worthy, I don't have confidence, people don't like me, I don't fit in. I'm going to do this so I can fit in, so I'm not getting picked on. It's amazing how much of it is associated to self-worth and your own ways of what you believe in your own self. And someone brought this up about, well, you brought it up as well, about your parents separating when you were a teenager, and that's what threw you into a direction of self-harm. And I guess I'll finish my little story before we get into yours. But, you know, I got separated and divorced. So that was, you know, almost 3.5 years ago now. And because of my experience as a kid, you know, being bullied for being fat, and the funny thing is, they didn't call you names because you were big. They called you dumb, you know, weak, you know, all these terms that really have an effect, a long-term effect on your psychology in your own subconscious. Yeah. And one of the things that they kept bringing up was that separation, right? When people get divorced and people thinking, like the kids thinking that they're weak and they have to get stronger. And one person was talking about someone in grade 3 talking about, I've got to get strong, you know, I'm weak. And it's like, and he was saying to his nephew that, you know, man, just be a kid. Like, you don't have to worry about that kind of stuff just yet. You know, about 9 years old. But it's amazing how early it begins. And I think that's one of the most poignant points that we really need to recognize in our society, that children are, they're such sponges, right? They listen so much. They absorb so much. The moment there's negative stuff going on, like in the household and stuff, it impacts them. Because that notion of, what is it? Kids are resilient. Yeah. It's rubbish. Yeah. They're not resilient. They just don't show you it.
Yeah, I mean, kids can be really resilient if they're raised in the right household. So if they're raised in a negative household, it can go both ways. They can either become really resilient and start obviously building up their own resilience against negative things, or that negative can really drive them towards developing their own mental health issues, not being able to deal with it properly, and ending up with a lot of the same issues that you and me are facing.
Absolutely.
You know, or anybody like us. Yeah. I mean, personally, I've never had an experience with eating disorders. It is something that I've just covered at college. And I suppose it touches on self-harm, because with bulimia, it's they're constantly making themselves be sick because they don't want to gain weight. They want to control their weight because of all these things that they're feeling. So they want to, like you said, they want to fit in. They want to feel like they are worthy of people liking them, etc. You know, it is a lot of psychological, but they're constantly making themselves be sick. Obviously, the stomach acid is coming up, and that's not good for your body. So bulimia is a form of self-harming. But then the other one is binge eating. That's it. And obviously binge eating, it's whenever you're feeling rubbish, feeling low, and you turn to food, food becomes a comfort to you. So you'll use maybe ice cream, chocolate, whatever, you know.
I've been there.
Yeah. No, well, this is like... Yep. Yeah. No, well, I've been there myself. You know, I mean, I felt really rubbish, and you know, I've cried into a bottle of wine. I drank the whole thing and ended up throwing up afterwards. You know, that was when I lost my nana. You know, but it's sort of, when you're binge eating, you're constantly eating constantly, and you won't stop until you make yourself be sick. But then people who have this condition won't stop when they be sick. They'll continue afterwards as well. They just feel like the urge to just keep eating all the time. But then it's sort of, they'll go back to normal things. They'll go back to normal day-to-day life and anything like that. But then they'll repeat the behaviour because they have that urge to just eat because they're feeling down and feeling rubbish. Yeah? So that is, again, that's a form of self-harm, because all that food, it's not good for your body to overeat all the time. You have to sort of control how much you eat to keep yourself healthy. I mean, that's not to say that you can't enjoy a tub of ice cream with your partner or a bar of chocolate at night time. I know I do. I have a little bit of chocolate at night time. So what? That's my little treat. That's my little treat. Yeah. At the end of the day, it's like, hand me my chocolate. I'm going to chill out for an hour before I go to bed. Fine. That's fine. Everything in moderation.
Absolutely.
Right. That's the healthy attitude. Yeah. Yeah. But touching on self-harm, that's obviously the experience I do have with. Like you said, we were talking about this beforehand, and my parents separated when I was a teenager. My dad left the family house, and the transition of going from my dad being there all the time, a person that I could talk to and share my feelings with and ask for advice, etc., wasn't there. And he became just a weekend dad. And the transition from that, I didn't cope with it very well. You know, and I was in that situation for a couple of years until he eventually came back into the family household, and we lost my granddad, sadly, to cancer. You know, throughout all that time, I self-harmed. I did. And it all started from, I went out one night, I was walking along, didn't care where I'd end up. I wasn't in a very good frame of mind. And I ended up in a park, and there were glass on the floor. And I know from talking to other people around me, like in my circle of friends, that cutting yourself was a form of numbing the pain, dealing with the pain. So I tried it, and I got a sense of it was a sense of dealing with the pain that I was feeling inside, because I didn't understand the pain I was feeling in here and in here. So that was my way of coping. And that was my way of coping for a couple of years. And unfortunately, with the fact that I was, like you, being bullied because of my weight, being bullied because of my hair colour, being bullied because I wore glasses, and then being told that I was a mistake and I wasn't wanted at home. I had to deal with all this, and self-harming was my way of dealing with all that. Now, obviously, it took to me losing my granddad to stop the self-harming. So for a good couple of years, I self-harmed. Nobody noticed. Not one person noticed. School didn't notice. My dad didn't notice at the weekends. My mum didn't notice. Well, she didn't care anyway. But nobody noticed. Not one person. And I was pretty much on my own in that 2 years. And it was not a very nice place to be in. But so, now, go on.
Just out of curiosity on that point, because it's lonely, right? You're self-harming, you're by yourself. In one way, you're screaming on the inside for some sort of attention and some sort of help in that respect, but you haven't got the words to be able to do that. And you did that for 2 years.
Yeah, just give or take a month or so, something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. What happened in that 2-year period socially? Like, were you mingling with friends? Did it give you more confidence in certain areas, or did you retract more?
I retracted.
More.
Yeah, I retracted because, thing is, I didn't have a choice but to retract because on the weekends it would be, I finished school on a Friday and then it would be a case of go home, get changed, pick up the suitcase that my mum had packed and go and get the train down to Liverpool. And at that point, it was taking 2 hours from where I am to Liverpool. It was taking 2 hours. So, we'd stop off after one train. So we'd go from where I am to Manchester. And there's obviously a McDonald's on Manchester train station. And that was my tea on a Friday night. Nip up to McDonald's, grab something to eat, go and jump on the train from Manchester to Liverpool. And obviously that was just over an hour on the train. Trains are not the comfortable of places, but I had my McDonald's and that's basically how I dealt with it. I had to make that McDonald's give me some sort of enjoyment on that train journey. And then from Liverpool Lime Street to where my dad and my granddad lived was another train ride. So it was 3 trains between my mum's house and where my dad was. And I had to do that every single Friday, and then on a Sunday I had to make the return journey. And sometimes because of obviously trains being delayed, maintenance on train lines, it would take even 4 or 5 trains to get back from Liverpool to where I am, because I had to go via Wigan at one point. So we had to go from Liverpool to Wigan, Wigan to Manchester, Manchester to where I am. Absolutely horrific time. I hate trains. To this day, I don't like trains.
and I guess that's associated to, that traumatic experience that you were going through, where your parents are separated, you didn't know how to deal with that grief, you didn't know how to deal with those emotions. But tell everyone that your dad moved back in.
Yes, he did.
2 years later, and then everything shifted.
Yeah. So we've gone down to Liverpool one weekend, and suddenly my mum announced that we were staying down Liverpool. So obviously the whole family shifted down to Liverpool, and we went into a homeless hostel, and we lived in the homeless hostel for a while. And we were told that we were waiting for a house in Liverpool through the council. And they even started me in school. So obviously I started to go back to school, come home. Well, go back to the homeless hostel, but at least my mum was there and my dad. They were together again. But then I got off the bus from school one night and my mum was there, which was really, really weird because she never met me off the bus. And she said that we was coming back to our original town. And I remember that night, I cried all the way from Liverpool to where I am now. I cried all the way home because I just didn't want to come back from Liverpool. I didn't want to because I thought us coming back here would mean me going back to basically being a parcel to play pass the parcel with between my parents. That's the way I described it. You my parents were playing pass the parcel with me. I was the parcel. It destroyed my social life for those 2 years because I lost a lot of friends because I just wasn't in my local town, the area. And all the kids that I was around, they would only see me for a couple of days at the weekends. So they never built any proper relationships with me. I mean, I would talk to them, but, never built any proper relationships. It destroyed my social life. But then, my dad did come back and moved back into the family household. Things shifted. But then we sadly lost my granddad to cancer. And it was that made me stop. I don't know why it made me stop, but suddenly losing my granddad was the wake-up call, me self-harming. That could easily be me in that box. And I think it was that. The fact that I knew it could very well lead down to that. I'm guessing that's what it was. I mean, I don't know.
Well, it's death is a pretty good instigator of change.
Yeah.
Especially if you've got a kinship with someone. If you've I was very close.
I sort of watched my granddad go through his cancer journey, go from the man that I knew to the man he was a couple of days before he died. I sort of watched that decline in his health, and it wasn't a very good thing. And I think that was the worst few months. The last 6 months of his life was the worst 6 months. That was the real change. And I don't know how that didn't help my self-harming. I don't know. But it was when he died, that's when it stopped me.
So did you ever bring it up to anyone? Like when you were going through it? Never said anything to no friends? Never brought anything up? Hinted? The hint?
No.
In a black humor kind of way?
I was always very, very secretive about it. Anybody that I went to school with knew that on PE days I wore a long sleeve t-shirt underneath my school shirt. So I would just take my school shirt off, do PE, and at the end of PE, put my school shirt back on. And then other younger days, I wore a hoodie underneath my school blazer. So then, I mean, I said it was because I was cold. Well, it's cold anyway, but I even did it on warm days. I had my hoodie on. But I could obviously unzip my hoodie. But my arms were always covered. I always made sure that my arms were covered. I would never let anybody take this hoodie off me, ever. I was always very, very secretive about it. I would do it maybe at the top of my arms to hide it under t-shirts. But if I did do it on my lower arms, it was always hidden with my hoodie. I would never tell anybody about it. I never attempted to talk about it. I was even thrown into counselling at one point in school, and I never brought it up with my school counsellor because I just thought if I tell the school counsellor what's going on, I could potentially be removed from my family. And I just didn't want to lose my family. It wasn't a brilliant family, but at least I had my parents. And at Christmas, at least I could see my dad. If I got removed, I would lose my dad altogether and I would be on my own. And I think that's the fear that made me stop, not talk. So that's my experience with self-harming.
Yeah, it's a lot of fear, right? So much of it is around fear, fear of losing someone else, especially after, you're going through a divorce with your parents. Yeah. So there's a fear that you could lose something else again that you love. Yeah, it really is intriguing how much, when you think back when you're a kid or a young teenager, how much of that actually just keeps going in the head.
Yeah.
And I think, look, it's gotten better these days.
Yeah.
There certainly is a lot more talking going on about different psychological issues, and that it's okay to talk about things, and
Yeah.
which is great, really, really good. I still have a really big soft spot for bullying. Like, I can't stand it. I can't stand seeing
Yeah.
anyone bullied, because I know very well what it's like. And when I was once I got my confidence back, not that I don't ever remember having it personally. Like, that's how many years it went on for. I
Yeah.
don't actually remember as a young kid me having self-confidence. But when I did get it back, like when I did have it, I was about 15 and a half. And I did a triathlon, and that's where everything shifted for me. I just got confidence. All of a sudden, I was accepted. And the only times I ever got into fights after that was me standing up for other people.
Yeah.
And the only injuries I ever got at school was me standing up for other people.
Yeah. And I never got to that point. I think it was all the way through high school. I never had any confidence. Ever. I absolutely hated school. Obviously, I was bullied all the way through school. And it was when I started on the Mental Health Warriors. That's when I gained my confidence. I was nervous as hell on my first show. I was thinking, I'm going to get judged. I'm going to get called stupid. People are going to be laughing at me because of this. I'm putting myself out there of being vulnerable. But all I got was positivity, and I was shocked. So I obviously did a second show with Steve Knapp, and the positivity continued. And the more and more shows I did, the more confident I got, the more positive reviews I got, and now I'm confident. I'm confident enough to tell my story, to share the facts that, yeah, I've been there. I've hit rock bottom. I've attempted suicide. I've done self-harming in the past. But I'm at a point now where I've learned through doing my mental health at college, I've learned how to sort myself out. Doesn't mean that I still don't have bad days, because I do. But I'm at a point now where I'm confident enough to say I'm okay at the moment, but I still do have bad days, like us all. Yeah. So the Mental Health Warriors has given me confidence.
That's awesome. And you know what? I just want to point something out. You held yourself for so many years. Growing up, you didn't have a voice. You stifled everything down. You shoved it all down. You put it in a little box, threw it out the back. I'm not going to talk about shit. And then all of a sudden, you go and create an interview program, a conversational program, and you have to have a voice. And all of a sudden, your confidence started coming through because you got the chance to speak. And I think this is a really fundamental part of anyone's journey, of anyone's growth, of anyone going through any bad psychological issues, any bad experiences, is that when it comes down to it, your voice is the key to allowing everything to release. Because when you can talk about things, when you can actually get the courage to let it flow, Like the mouth is the exit pathway, right?
Yeah.
Not for food, but for words and energy.
Yeah.
And the moment that you started doing that, your confidence built, and people were giving you positivity because you were positive in your own self.
Yep.
And that's a beautiful thing. It's something that all of us just need to take a note just in that aspect alone, in your experience of how powerful an experience the moment you start sharing your own story and really just allowing it to be is a really big healing process.
Yeah. And the Campfire came up, the Campfire Project with Alan Stevens. Do you know all about Alan Stevens?
Mm-mm.
No?
No, I don't.
No. Alan Stevens, Scott Corson, Angela Hayes. They're just three amazing people that are involved with the Campfire Project. And it's based in Australia as well. I will have to connect you with Alan Stevens so that you can go into the Campfire. It's an absolutely amazing place. And when Adam introduced me to the Campfire, obviously the opportunity to share your story is in there. And I told myself, I don't have a story. I don't. But then I started watching all these videos of other people sharing their stories, and they'd been bullied, they'd been abused, they'd gone through horrible, traumatic things, and they'd obviously attempted suicide and self-harmed, etc., etc. And I started thinking, well, I've done those things. I've attempted suicide. I've self-harmed. I've been through traumatic things of wanting to go to sleep and not wake up. Right? So I do have a story to tell. Might only be a little insignificant one, but I do have a story. But now I feel like my story is not little insignificant. It's what makes me me. My story makes me who I am.
Absolutely. And let me just say, you are unique, warrior queen.
Thank you.
There is nothing.
Everybody's unique, though.
There is nothing ordinary about you. All of us individuals, we've all had our own personal journeys, and that's what makes us special. And the moment that we allow ourselves to really realize that you don't have to be the leader of a country to feel worth, right? You don't have to be the leader of a CEO of a corporate enterprise to have worth in your life and confidence in your life. Just the very notion that you can be happy, just to get into that state of just looking at life with a smile, that's one of the biggest, most successful stories to ever happen in anyone's life. It's so integral in the ability to just be us, regardless of all the shit. We need to talk about the shit because the shit is interesting. Yeah. And that's what's special, right? The more that we talk about the shit things we went through, the more that we heal, the more that we actually go, oh, that's in the past. That's a story, and it's a beautiful story. And it took me to here, to being a host on the Mental Health Warriors. Who bloody well would have thought that?
Yep. Yeah, tell you what, 12 months ago, I would not be sat in front of this camera sharing my story. I just wouldn't. But obviously, Adam created the Mental Health Warriors and then brought me on. And obviously, I've grown through the Mental Health Warriors. And now I find myself acting CEO of the Warriors because Adam has taken a back seat at the moment. So obviously I'm helping look after the Mental Health Warriors. So I'm acting CEO while the actual CEO is sorting himself out in the background. But you don't have to be like Kane said. You don't have to be the CEO of a company, the ruler of a country, or anything just to be happy. Surround yourself with people that are important and love you for you and help you be positive and you can be happy.
Absolutely.
That warrior spirit is in every one of us. And you can call yourself a warrior every single morning. Tell yourself, I am a warrior. And the positivity things will come through. The universe will start to bring the positivity to you.
So there's a really interesting aspect to the warrior thing, right? So when I was going through the most intense experience of my life, which was divorce, so it was divorce, but then, you know, a couple of months later, it came out that there was another family involved. So it turned into this big social event. My kid, my oldest son got changed schools because we knew all the parents at that school. They knew all the story. Oh, it was chaotic, right? I lost during that period. I lost 3 dogs in like 10 months, all in tragic circumstances. Like,
oh God!
It was extreme.
I like the fact that you're laughing about that.
I lost
you know,
the job
talking about a traumatic thing and you're laughing about it.
I've let it all go now. I did a lot of I did a lot of work on really allowing myself to feel the essence of grief and really travel through grief to get to the other side, because you can't squander grief. You can't jump a step. You can't go around it. You can't go under it. You can't go over it. You have to go through it. You've got to experience it. And you have to be aware during the experience that it's not happening to you, it's happening for you. And there's a reason for it. Like, everything has a reason. And until you figure that out, until you get down and really understand what the lesson that you were forced to learn, because, you know, it might be divorce, or someone died, or your partner, you know, you might be together with someone 50, 60, 70 years and they die. And that's heart-wrenching, right? How do you deal with that? Well, the only way to deal with it is to deal with it. You have to deal with it in your own personal way. And, you know, when I was going through that extreme impact, you know, it was over a 9-month period that I was the most intense. I actually saw a gladiator in my mind. And this gladiator became my mind protector. He was my gatekeeper. And any time that I felt like, when I woke up in the morning, I didn't feel like getting out of bed, and just felt like crying and you know, just staying in a little ball.
Yeah. And you know what? It's okay to be like that, because I still have those days where I wake up and I suddenly think of everything that needs to be doing that day, and I'm like, I don't want to be an adult today. You know, I still have those days, but then I tell myself, no one else is going to do it. I'm going to have to get up and do it. I don't have a magic bell and ring a maid to come and do my cleaning for me. I wish I did, but I don't.
Yeah, well, this is a really interesting aspect. So when I did get divorced, I was basically general managing this high-class restaurant. I was the project manager of all the high-class events inside a multi-million-dollar aquarium. So I basically spent most of my days talking to corporates from all over the country, government officials and things like that, and organizing events and having a massive team of people that I had to run as well, going through that experience. And, you know, the beautiful thing that I did, I mean, this is part of leadership. Leadership, you can't fake it, right? Leadership, you got to live it. And one of those aspects was I was really open and honest to all my staff. I let them all know what was going on. And some days I would have bad days. And I would tell them, I'm having a bad day. Just just keep an eye on me and give me a little bit of support if it looks like I need it. All right. And then I'd have to walk out sometimes and just have a cry. You know, it would just be overwhelming. And I'd have to tell, because I kept warning everyone, look, today, I feel like today might be a bad day. Just be aware. You get so much more support when you're honest. You know, when you try and hide things, like as a kid, like you're a kid, I was a kid.
Yep.
We never talked about the shit that was going on in our head.
Yep.
But no one ever thought that we needed any help.
Yep.
We never got support because we didn't know how to talk about it. We didn't know how to share it. We didn't know how to communicate it, that we needed help, that we were feeling alone.
If only the mental health warriors existed when we were kids.
Yeah, absolutely. Like it's seriously important to consistently talk about these types of things and you know, leadership behaviors and personal behaviors, relationship behaviors, you know, and really understanding that it's okay to have shit thoughts. If you're going through a bad experience, I mean, I can count on at least one full hand amount of times I've thought about, maybe two hands, maybe thought about killing myself, right? Because it just happens. You have bad experiences in your life. You don't know how to deal with the grief. And then you go, the world doesn't need me. I'm just going to kill myself, right? But you don't tell anyone about it. You just keep it to yourself and you drive the car really fast and head towards a tree and then chicken out at the last second, you know.
I've never done that. Well, I've never done that, but yeah, you know, I mean, Karen Unruh, one of the warriors that obviously is left for medical reasons, she has a brilliant saying, we have to go through shit to grow. So maybe going through all these bad times, that's the universe preparing us for the next chapter of our lives. You know, something great is coming up. So you're going to go through all this shit now because on the horizon, there's so much good things, but you have to go through this shit in order to get there. The universe has a plan for us all. And if we put lots of positivity out there, positivity will come back. But if we put negative out there, our lives are going to be negative. Think positive. You're a warrior. We're all warriors. Yeah? And the positivity will come back to you.
Yeah, it's so true. Whatever's going on the inside is a reflection of what's happening on the outside. And I'm a big believer of that. I'm a big believer in the whole energy aspect. Whatever you're thinking is just amplified out into the universe, out into people around you.
Playing in the bin. Cats are in the bin. Get out the bin, you tramp. Cat in the bin. Tramps. They're not hungry. I have fed the cats.
They just like attention. Come on. That cat doesn't like a little bit of attention.
When you've got 9 of them, they all need attention sometimes.
You've got 9 cats.
Yes.
That's a lot of cats.
Yeah. Well, you've already seen one. One popped up and said hello.
Do you know all of them by name?
Yeah.
Yeah, just check it.
Yeah, the one that popped up a couple of times to say hello, she's called Kiara. She's one of my youngest ones.
Kiara. I love that name, Kiara, actually.
And see, her ears are now twitching now. Kiara. Kiara. Come on then. Come say hello. No? All right, okay then.
And I was reading something interesting before too, that in Australia, so in 2019 in Australia, 4% of the population have eating disorders that are known.
Yeah. I bet that number is a lot higher. Undiagnosed eating disorders.
I would say so. Yeah, most definitely. Because, like I said, I mean, it's quite possible that I had an eating disorder, not that I recognized it.
Yeah.
Or that anyone thought I had one, right? I come from a European background, Polish background. So they never stop eating. There's always food. There's pierogi, and there's all these carbs, right? All these, pastas and pizza and whatever, breads and gherkins and rice salad.
I don't like gherkins.
and some people's bodies can deal with it, and mine didn't like it at all. So it's quite possible that it is a lot higher, and especially like I know of some adults, fully grown adults, women, that have eating disorders. They've got bulimia, and again, so much of it is psychological, in the pains and the worries from certain aspects of life, and it can be from such a different range of stuff, right? I mean, I was sexually assaulted when I was 10 years old, right? And that could have driven me into a completely different direction compared to what I had.
Yeah, definitely.
But I did hide it. No one knew about it ever until just recently, the last couple of years, when I had to release it. That was one of the growth things that I had to go through personally, and it was wonderful to release and go through that experience. But eating disorders is so eating disorders and self-harm is so vast in so many different aspects from so many different experiences. But from what I can understand, and what I really, from all the people that I listen to and read about, I'm no expert on this, I'm not saying, but so much of it comes down to self-worth.
It definitely does. Yeah, it does. I mean, in the particular society nowadays, a lot of the teenagers are on social media, and there's a sort of, you've got to look a certain way, you've got to act a certain way, you've got to sort of do certain things in order to be accepted. Things like attitudes like that. This is what's going to drive a lot of people to develop anxiety, to develop depression, to develop eating disorders. So this is why we want to obviously do what we do through the Mental Health Warriors, to raise the awareness of mental health and say, look, it's okay not to fit in. It's okay not to be okay. If you don't look like everybody else, that's fine. Nobody is meant to look the same. We are all created unique. We are unique for a reason, because that's the way the universe intended us to be, unique. We're not supposed to all be the same size, the same shape, have the same hair colour, etc. We're not meant to be like that. If we were meant to be like that, we wouldn't be unique. Embrace the fact that you are different, accept it, and get on with it. You are you for a reason. You were created the way you are for a reason. You have to find that reason in your life and empower yourself to feel like, I don't need to be accepted by other people. I'm happy in myself. Because once you're happy in yourself, other people start realizing she's happy in herself. That's fine.
Yeah, builds confidence.
It's about self-empowerment.
Absolutely, Kerry. Absolutely. And there's one thing. So much of this that I hear about, read about, with self-harm and eating disorders.
Mm-hmm.
So much of it stems from somewhere in childhood, right?
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on the education system, and what could be done or added to the curriculum, or even taken away from the curriculum, to enhance, and the reason why I'm bringing this up, I'll get to to enhance children's self-worth, self-confidence, because what we realize in the greater scheme of things, the cost on our public health care, on families, on communities, for not having self-worth is actually pretty massive.
Yeah. Definitely more lessons in mental health. So lessons in recognizing mental health, recognizing mental health signs, symptoms in yourself and maybe in your friends or your family members, whatever. And then obviously doing the personal well-being and the self-empowerment courses, something like that in school. I mean, we could do a whole other episode on the education system and mental health. You know? And I don't really want to get too much into the education system with it. I'm just going to touch on it a little bit.
Yes, please.
Maybe we can bring you back and we can talk about that in a whole different one.
Sure.
Yeah.
I think it's a huge topic in that respect.
Yeah, it is.
You know, right across the globe. You know, self-harm and eating disorders are all it's all part of the psychological essence of what children, teenagers, in a way, you know, some of us have to go through those things to experience life in that respect. But giving them the tools, giving us as kids more tools to be able to be more aware of ourselves, that we can share from a safe place, that we're not going to get ridiculed for it. And that can happen. Look, I'm a man.
Yeah.
And boys get ridiculed for, you know, talking about stuff.
Yeah.
And it still happens. It's getting better slowly, though, so slowly. It is moving forward. You know, there's some positive aspects, but, you know, some boys, I was listening to some young guys talking about their eating disorders and their self-harm. And again, it's the pressure on the boys not to say anything.
Yeah.
You know, deal with it.
Yeah.
Don't talk about it. Don't show your emotion. And it makes them worse.
There is a lot of pressure on boys to sort of be that manly, dominant figure, you know. But we don't want men to be dominant and manly. Yeah, all right, some aspects, but then we have to need our men to be in touch with their feminine sides, be in touch with their feelings, and to talk about their feelings. It's okay not to be okay, and that goes for anybody, not just women. Anybody.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's okay to show your feelings. It's okay to say, look, I'm feeling really crap today. We need to talk. I would like to talk about it. Even if it's just to vent your frustrations. I'm really, really angry about this today. You know, somebody to listen to you venting and not judge you for anybody.
Yeah. 100% agree. And maybe we could wrap it up on that note that if you need to vent, just bloody vent. Venting is good.
Yeah, venting all that anger is good. Vent it in a positive way, though. No,
absolutely.
We're not going to encourage anybody to do venting in a negative way. Vent it in a healthy, positive way.
Absolutely, but you've got to talk about it. You've got to express it. You've got to allow that to come out and have a conversation. But you're so right. Like, you've got to look at the positive sides, right? Rather than turning it around and going. So I'm not talking about venting about someone cut me off on the street in the car, and I'm going to vent about that. I'm talking about some stuff, venting the stuff that's going on inside your own head, about issues that you can't deal with, about maybe bullying in the workplace, about sexual harassment, or, you know, which, again, sexual harassment in the workplace, that leads to eating disorders. That can lead to self-harm. Like, it's not on. Like, it's just not on.
Yeah, right. Yeah, well, we'll definitely leave it there. The final messages is it's okay not to be okay, and it's okay to vent. You know, venting is good. And if you do need to talk, please do reach out. Anybody at the Warriors, even reach out to Kane maybe if you want to. We are here for just about anybody, and we're here for anybody. I mean anybody. Doesn't matter if you're male, doesn't matter if you're female, doesn't matter what age you are. We're here for everybody. One of our hashtags is hashtag time to talk. Please reach out if you do need a chat with us. Thank you very much for joining me, Kane. You've been amazing as usual.
Thank you, Carrie. It's been a pleasure to be here. Thank you for sharing some of your beautiful life with me. Thank you.
Yeah. And on the subject of mental health and the education system, Coffee Morning is free next week, same time. Would you like to come back and have a talk with me about that one?
So,
obviously, if you're free.
When is it?
The 7th of March at the same time. Are you free?
I'll get back to you. I won't commit until I just check my timetable.
That's fine. Let me know.
Awesome.
See you later.
So yes, unless. Yes,
yeah.
unless.
That's absolutely fine. See you later.
Take care, Karen.
Bye.